stopped and wondered, what does it truly mean to know something? It feels like we're all born with this curiosity, right? This deep-seated drive to figure things out, ourselves, the world, and what our place is in the whole shebang. Well, today we're diving right into that quest, the search for real, genuine understanding. But here's the thought. What if the very ways we try to find answers are kind of flawed? What if our whole modern approach to knowledge is leading us down the wrong trail, giving us these incomplete pictures instead of the actual truth? It's a massive question, and it's really at the heart of what we're going to unpack today. Okay, so our journey really starts with something that's just part of being human, that thirst for knowledge. It kicks off with our own personal curiosity, but it doesn't stop there. It grows, pushing us to understand our world, our environment, and, the very meaning of our existence. It's the engine that drives us to find answers. And right here, we hit a super important distinction. See, knowledge isn't just one thing. You've got theoretical understanding. That's like a hypothesis, an idea that hasn't been proven out yet. And then you have practical understanding. This is knowledge that's been backed up by real, effective results. And as you're about to see, knowing the difference between those two, well, that changes everything. But trying to get to that real, practical understanding has a huge roadblock. It's a concept you've probably heard a million times, but it is more critical than ever to remember: the trap of thinking that just because two things happen together, one must be causing the other. Yeah, according to the source material for this, a lot of what we call scientific research today isn't actually about finding brand new discoveries. Instead, what often happens is that investigators start with a hunch, an idea they already have, and then they just go out and collect a bunch of data that seems to back it up. They're looking for confirmation, not necessarily the capital T truth. Let's use a classic example you've probably seen a headline for. A study surveys, say, 1,000 people, and, shocker, it finds a strong link between exercising and being happy. On the surface, it seems pretty simple. They found a connection, they shout eureka, and boom, the headline is written. And this is the million-dollar question. Sure, the study shows a connection, but it doesn't explain the how or the why. It doesn't give us the kind of deep understanding we can actually use to make a lasting change in our lives. I mean, if we're being honest, it mostly just states something most of us probably could have guessed anyway, right? And this just perfectly illustrates the whole problem. When you actually look closer, happiness is incredibly complex. There are tons of other studies that point to things like gratitude, optimism, your relationships, having a sense of purpose, being financially stable, and your overall health. Exercise is just one little piece of a much, much bigger puzzle. So focusing on that one piece means you're missing the whole picture. Okay, and this is where the stakes get way higher. This isn't just some abstract problem for academics to debate. When these half-baked, incomplete theories get treated as solid fact, they can have massive, real-world consequences, even shaping the policies that govern all of our lives. Just look at how this can snowball. It all starts with that one shaky finding. Then, other researchers see it and start building on top of it. Pretty soon, this unproven idea becomes some kind of governing principle. And before you know it, leaders are actually creating social policies based on it. Suddenly, entire populations become the subjects of a giant social experiment, all based on an idea that was never really proven in the first place. At the end of the day, it really just boils down to this simple, timeless piece of wisdom. The real value of an idea or a theory or a policy, it isn't about how scientific it sounds. It's all about the results. Does it actually work? Does it create real, effective, lasting, positive change? That is the only test that truly matters. So, if all this empirical research can be so limiting, is there another way? Well, the source material argues that yes, there absolutely is, and it points to something every single one of us has, but we might have forgotten how to use it: the power of our intuition. So you end up with these two totally different paths to understanding. On one side, you have empirical research, observing things, collecting data, working only with what you can physically see and measure. But on the other side, you've got intuition. These are those sudden bursts of insight that seem to come from a deeper source. Ideas that might even feel a little improbable at first, but they have the power to open up entirely new ways of seeing things. And I love this analogy because it's so perfect. Our intuition isn't some random mystical thing that just happens. It's an ability, an endowment we all have. But just like a muscle, if we don't actively use it, if we only rely on what's right in front of our eyes and we ignore that inner voice, it gets weak, it atrophies. And the consequences of letting that happen, they're pretty serious. We become less open to any kind of deeper guidance. Our decisions start to be dominated by what's in it for me. That inner voice we call a conscience, it starts to fade. We might see suffering in some faraway place, but we fail to connect it back to our own actions, like our demand for cheap stuff that fuels exploitation on the other side of the world. We literally lose the ability to see how everything is connected. So what's the path forward here? Well, it's not about just blindly accepting what so-called experts tell you, but it's also not about blindly following some random feeling. It's about building genuine personal conviction. And this quote really gets to the core of what genuine faith is. It's not about somebody else telling you what's true. It comes from your own rigorous personal process of weighing an idea, testing it, examining it from every possible angle, until it becomes your own unshakable conviction. And that really just leaves us with a final question to reflect on. In a world that is just overflowing with data and studies and expert opinions all telling us what to think, how often do you actually make space to listen to that other source of knowledge? How often do you listen to your intuition?